On this episode of What the Fuck Did I Just Watch?
We watched a silent movie. The Man Who Laughs. So, Steven, what article was it that inspired you to select this one for the evening?
Crack's 9 terrifying old movies that put modern horror to shame.
Really? This?
This is included. It is.
This isn't even a horror movie.
It's item 7.
I mean, yeah, the face is pretty terrifying, but the character isn't. I'm not following it.
I don't know. Oh, I guess they're just saying that the face is scary, and that's why it's scarier than any modern horror movie.
That's lame.
It kind of is.
Because this is just... What would you describe this as? A romance, I guess.
Yeah, in a way.
It's written by Victor Hugo, the original story was. The guy behind...
Les Mis.
So the guy's got a penchant for long, multi-person stories that happen over long periods of time and bollocks.
Yeah. So, the story of this one is that the main character, Gwynplaine, is the child of a noble who refused to kiss the king's hand. So, they sentence his father to death with an Iron Maiden, and he is captured by...
Gypsies!
Yeah, they're like gypsy types that carve a permanent smile into his face.
And apparently, like, they're then declared evil, and then there's an entire boat of these doctors whose job is to carve... You know what? It's weird, and I feel like it's just a leftover of old-timey gypsy racism.
Yeah.
So there's no goddamn explanation for it. His face was carved into a permanent smile. As a kid. He's like 10.
Yeah.
And then he misses a boat or something and is like wandering the frozen tundra known as England. Finds a baby whose mother died in the snow. Again, frozen tundra known as England.
Yeah.
And then stumbles upon Ursus the Philosopher.
We say that because it keeps being brought up and we don't see him doing any actual philosophy.
No, it was only brought up that one time.
Well, no, it comes up every time they do an announcement thing.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it was like Ursus the playwright or something.
No, that's what they said, but all the printed stuff said Ursus the philosopher.
Oh, and it's just... He's a vagrant. He's a vagrant. And, like, because the kid is apparently a freak show-worthy appearance, the kid becomes, like, his, like, meal ticket. And I'm like, so are you a philosopher or are you a circus man? You can't be both.
So we cut to, years later, the kid and the baby are grown up.
The kid is Gwynplaine.
Yeah.
And the baby is Dee, who is blind. Because Ursus the Philosopher said so.
So they're on their way to a fair of sorts. I don't remember the name of it. Southwark was the name.
It was a fair.
Yeah.
Cool looking fair, too. They had like a 4-person merry-go-round. I don't know. I thought it was neat.
Ferris wheel.
Ferris wheel. Thank you.
Which they mounted a camera on for one shot, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, there was some like legit impressive camera work for this movie.
Yeah.
And like makeup work. And for the most part, I could tell what was happening.
Mm.
I mean, a couple times you were complaining that you couldn't follow. Like, there's not enough title cards. I don't know what people are saying, but I was like, I can guess.
Well, yeah, you can guess.
Context clues and all that shit.
Yeah, it's annoying because you give us a lot early on and then none.
Well, that's the point. They give you a lot early on to set it up, but then once the ball's in motion, they assume you can follow along.
I know. See, my only experience with silent movies is Metropolis, which had a lot of title cards.
Well, Metropolis was sci-fi.
Yeah.
There's no way around it when it comes to sci-fi.
Yeah, so that's my only experience with silent film.
Mine was The Machine Age with Charlie Chaplin.
Mm. Yeah, I haven't seen any of this stuff.
Machine Age is legit really good. I can't speak for the rest of it, but like the Machine Age really holds up, like just as a film.
I know I enjoyed Metropolis, so I'm not opposed to silent films.
I need to see Metropolis.
It's really good. Although you need to see the complete Metropolis and the 1984 party version.
1984 party!
Where they basically put colored filters and 80s prog rock over it.
That sounds bizarre and kind of cool.
It's fun.
Oh, and there was a surprising... Okay, so, like, there's this whole subplot about the Duchess. We don't even know, like, what her relationship is, but she's, like, living off the estate of Gwynplaine's father.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's gone. They assume he's dead, and there's no heir.
Yeah.
And, like, the jester of the former king is, like, creeping on her, and the queen is in charge now. I don't know. There's all sorts of court drama that I couldn't give two shits about. Because I will never care about court drama. Ever. Ever. That's why I don't watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah, so...
Well, that and I don't have access to HBO. But even if I did, I wouldn't give a shit. I was like, oh, all these people are trying to win the throne. And I'm like, okay, yes, they're very fascinating people. But they're also trying to succeed in a feudal system, which is bullshit. I have no sympathy for people who try and fail to survive in the feudal system.
What about the serfs? They don't have a choice in it.
So why would I care about watching their plight?
What I'm saying,
I don't know, for me the medieval period is like a big I don't give a shit period of storytelling. Because all their stories are based on a political system that to me is just utter bullshit.
Our current system's pretty bullshit too.
But it's less bullshit. It's bullshit in execution, not in conception.
Well, yes.
Feudalism was bullshit in conception.
But it worked. For a while.
For a surprisingly long time.
But anyway...
Anyway, there's a Duchess who we see her ass, which I was like, wow, that was more nudity than I was expecting for a 1928 film.
Yeah. So there's this whole thing where she, like, you know...
Goes to the fair.
Well, she goes to the fair because she doesn't care about the court and, you know, just wants to do whatever she wants.
And to be fair, that inflicted concert was really boring.
Yeah. So, she goes to the fair and sees the adverts for
the Laughing
Man, but doesn't actually go see him, and before her betrothed finds her at the request of the queen to drag her back.
And it's like, you are wandering around in peasant clothes and letting complete randos touch your boobs.
Yeah. Making a point that she let them take more liberties than she did with him.
Honestly, this movie spent a lot of time setting up that she is like a worthless harlot and then never paid it off.
Yeah.
Like she just vanished out of the movie at that climax.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't really much they could have done. Wasn't.
I know. I felt like there was a lot of time spent on her character for how useless she was.
I mean, I suppose setting up for the scene with Gwynplaine, but.
Eh.
So anyway, she goes back to the fair because screw the nobles, and goes specifically to see the Laughing Man. Except this time she's actually in, you know, court garb and is, you know, letting them know her station. And she watches, and the whole time she's just not laughing. She's just kind of staring at him.
And we can't tell if she's bored or turned on. Turns out she was turned on.
Yeah, like majorly. So she sends him a note, basically summoning him
to her chambers.
Yeah.
Woohoo. Woohoo.
And it was...
Oh, and we should mention Gwynplaine and the baby he discovered in the snow are like totally hot for each other at this point.
Yeah, they're like, they totally have the hots for each other, but she's like throwing herself at him and he's like, no, I have no right to love, blah, blah, blah. You know, standard...
emo bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say the guy hasn't got his problems. I mean, his face is stuck in a permanent smile regardless of how he actually feels.
Yeah.
Which was well portrayed in the movie.
Yeah, they did a really good job of making sure that...
You could tell that he was smiling not because he wanted to.
Yeah. But then there were other times you could tell that that the smile would have been genuine if he had control of his face.
He doesn't. And is therefore a terrible kisser.
Yeah, and so she summons him to her chambers and he sneaks out.
For reasons that kind of make sense but are really complicated.
Yeah, it's like he says something about a woman who saw my face and may love me, so he thinks that makes it okay for him to love Dee, which you could just do.
Yeah.
So he goes to see her, and she's all like, you know, falling all over him, and
I'm stretched out on the bed in my negligee. Come fuck me.
yeah, just trying to seduce him, and he's
Oh,
like,
but then
no,
coincidence of coincidences. While she's trying to seduce him, she gets a message. Hey, we found the heir to the throne that you're currently leeching off of. So, yeah, you're gonna have to marry that guy. And then she's like, shit.
Yeah, so she gets all depressed because now
she has to be beholden to someone.
Yeah, so now that she could have him, she didn't want him, so she laughs at him and he runs away.
And then, like, he bumps into the dog Homo.
Yeah.
Such a weird... There were a lot of weird names in this movie. Like, there was the doctor guy who set the whole, like, he's the son of the Lord guy ball in motion. Doc Chakalra something.
Yeah.
Makes Walking Phoenix's name seem like a walk in the park.
Yeah, so that was one thing we kept saying is they could have just left him alone and not said anything.
Yeah, like, they knew he was the heir, but they weren't cool with the fact that he was the Laughing Man clown.
I mean, like, the doctor's motivation was he wanted to blackmail...
Yeah, he was going to be like, hey, I'll reveal that this completely worthless nobody is a noble unless you pay me money.
Yeah, so his motivation was blackmail. We can't figure out why the nobles
insisted on making him one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they clearly didn't want to.
So, we don't know what's up with that.
This is why feudalism is bullshit.
I mean, they still have the House of Lords today, so...
Yeah, that doesn't mean it's not bullshit.
Well, it's just it operates differently.
Yeah, it's no longer feudalism.
But, yeah, so... Basically, the whole second half of the movie is Gwynplaine trying to get back to Dee and Ursus, and that's really all there is to it.
It's kind of amazing, like, so much actually, like, happens in the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not necessarily in terms of actions, but there's a lot of character development, and just people move around and interact. And then in the second half of the movie, it's, like, completely the opposite. Like, everyone's exactly where they were when the middle part of the movie began.
Yeah.
I don't know. This movie slowed down noticeably in the second half.
It really
Long movie, too.
Yeah, it was 2 hours, which is, I think, is long for the 1920s.
Yeah, I feel like that's a long silent movie.
I mean, like, you know, again...
I mean, I guess for a Victor Hugo novel, that's about right. But
yeah. Well, I mean, like, Metropolis was really long, but it's Metropolis.
But then, you know, I had you guys watch the Journey to the Moon, and that was like 12 minutes.
Yeah. There's one on this crack list that's 18 seconds. It's The Execution of Mary Stuart, I believe.
Isn't that like an actual execution they filmed?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because the actual execution happened in the 1500s.
Okay. Anyway, The Laughing Man is free on YouTube.
Yeah, you can...
Oh, what was the oh, yeah. The Laughing Man is who they based the Joker on.
Yeah.
Or the design of the Joker,
Yeah, he inspired the
and you can totally see it, like, especially if you're familiar with the Adam West Batman Joker. Like, the hair and the face of the Adam West Batman Joker are a lot like the Laughing Man.
Yeah. So you could definitely see the inspiration there.
But then, so that's kind of interesting as, like, a Batman fan, but then, like, there's no, like, relation in terms of character.
Yeah, like
it has the Joker as a character, maybe not in design, but in, like, conceit, was a unique thing.
Yeah. Like originally I went into this thinking that he comes back and kills a bunch of people, but he doesn't.
No. That would have been neat. That would have been a nice twist.
Yeah.
The twist. Liliana joined us, but then fell asleep because, and I was starting to fall asleep too. This is the thing with silent movies. Since the entire sound is classical music, it's kind of lulling Like, not necessarily to sleep, but it can lull you into, like, a zone out.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Man Who Laughs, it's worth a watch. It's an interesting story. It just...
Yeah, I would honestly be interested to see, like, how the book is. I mean, Victor Hugo, good writer, supposedly. Haven't actually read any of his stuff.
Yeah, neither have I.
But everyone's seen Les Mis.
I haven't.
In some form? You haven't seen it in any form whatsoever?
Nope.
Wow. No play?
Nope.
Not the non-musical version?
Haven't seen it on stage, haven't seen any of the movies. Haven't read it.
And yet I bet you know the general plot.
Nope.
Oh, wow.
I know the names of some characters.
Jean Valjean.
Yeah, that one and Inspector Javert, but that's because Javert is the name of one of our moderators in the
Also,
board.
Javert is a pretty common literary reference for dogged pursuit.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm going to bed. Good night, camera.
I'm going to turn it off, or are you going to do it?